Previously on Caddy Daddy Presents. It's here, Caddy Daddy's interactive video buying experience. When you see the product and a label, you can go to the label and click on it. That'll give you more information. Check it out. If you like what you see and you want to buy it, just click on the buy button. That takes you to the online store where you have more information, what customers purchased, related product. You can go back and click the X, and that will take you back to the interactive video. Enjoy the learning experience and the buying experience.
Hey, John.
Hey, Mr. Bob, it looks like you're here. Well, it looks like we're ready for the episode 2 of Bottoms Up.
And we're going to put the last bit of the suspension parts on here and kind of go over what we're going to need to do to move on to the next step.
Hey, I got something really cool to show you. Turn around. Since you've been here, I've acquired this 1952 banner. These were used in the showroom of a Cadillac dealership, and 52 was the year that I was born.
You're a 52 model.
I'm a 52 model. Not only that, 1952 was the year they invented the Golden Cadillac drink. Can you believe that?
Wonderful. So we're going to get to work here, and we're going to show the last bit of the suspension so we can get rolling pretty soon. All right, so now we have on the bench, what we're going to show you is right here, this is for the rear suspension. This is the air ride setup, which is the bellows and the can, which is an original 1959 style, that we're going to show you how to put the bellows into here. And also what we have is, for temporary, to demonstrate for the rear end, we have this fitting that we have made right here, and it's basically a Schrader valve with the same threads that go in there, and that way we can air up the bag and the bellows. So let's take a moment and let's see how we can get these guys in here. What we're going to do is we're going to use a combination of just a little tire soap right here, which is going to kind of facilitate us getting the bellows into the can, as well as some bead sealer. Bead sealer, this is very familiar if you have ever put a tire on, and what that's going to do is that's going to help seal the bead within the can right here. So let's go ahead and give that a whirl.
Let's seal this surface here against the inside of the metal can.
Right.
Okay, Bob, you want
And it's one of those things where it's any little bit, that soap just kind of helps facilitate getting in there. And it takes a little bit of elbow grease.
a little effort that
Yeah. But that's a good thing, because if it went in really easy, it might not seal properly.
So now we can sneak in, and the best tool I found doing the other one is the finger. And I'm going to get in there and apply some of this sealer. You might want to wear gloves, but just a small amount. It also is a bit of a lubricant also to help get everything to pop into place.
And so what this is doing is it's going to help seat it and also help find where it should seal.
So I think we got it pretty good. And Bob's going to give it a little burst of air. And we will fitting will allow us to hold some air pressure while we manipulate the bag into position.
And get it. And what's great is once we get it seated into position, that's where we can move forward from. So now we're going to actually change over and use a regular air chalk that you would use to fill up your air tire.
Okay, Bob, why don't you go ahead and put some air in there now? I think we got it seated.
Yeah, we got that seated a little
After wrestling with it a little bit.
elbow grease.
Yeah. Okay, that'll do.
You want to look around, make sure everything is even on here,
Yeah,
and have it seat just like you're putting on a motorcycle tire or a tire on your lawnmower.
it's looking pretty good there.
Looking good.
Yep, we got it that time. Okay, now give it a little bit more air. Okay, that'll do.
You get a little bulbous there just to kind of check it out.
Yeah, we wanted to.
It's also a good time to make sure that you don't have any leaks or anything like that or any imperfections in the rubber right there.
Yeah.
Everything looks nice and consistent.
We'll let a little bit of pressure out of this since we just needed some air to get it to seat. And we'll let the tire compound set up. So.
And we like to, the compound that we put in there, it's going to want to seat for a little bit. So I say give it a little bit of time.
About
right?
15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, at least
With,
that.
with a small amount of air pressure in there just to keep everything pressed together. Then actually when this is mounted in the vehicle, this is inverted. This part here where the lower control arm mates with it is actually pushed way up in here. It's turned inside out basically. And so this curves in, which puts more pressure to seal the bead itself.
Which it facilitates it itself. So let's let that sit. Let's give it a few moments and let's go over to the chassis and why don't we get that rear end together
Let's
and
get
get
going
ready
on
for
the
it.
differential and axle. So what we want to make sure is that the fitting for the airline is facing towards the front of the vehicle, and the two studs mount into the eccentric holes in the receptacle on the frame. So when we set this in place, that allows us to slide it side to side to line it up with the lower control arm. This part of the spring, or the airbag spring, fits into a recess in the control arm. And this is what moves up and down as the vehicle goes over bumps in the road. So we'll go ahead and get this bolted in place. So what we have here is a little homemade test fitting I made just with some bits and pieces I had around the shop. Just a bolt that I machined off, drilled a hole through, tapped it, just used straight threads, had a Schrader valve, and threaded that into the bolt. This is similar to what they show in the service manual. This is just something I threw together in the workshop, and it allows us to inflate the airbag using a regular standard tire chuck. So it's useful for checking things out if you want to isolate a dome and check for leaks there at each one. Or like what we're going to do, we need to get the suspension at its maximum extent so we can install the bump stops, which is coming up next. But we need to install our test fittings and put some air in the bags and demonstrate the suspension going up and down. We've already removed the standard fitting as part of the restoration. And so tighten that in and give it a little twist with a wrench, not too much, as you don't want to deform the O-ring. So now we'll take and go ahead and use a standard tire chuck here and put some air in the bag. Watch the suspension raise up and stop when it reaches the full extension of the shock absorber.
So the shocks are going on now, and what they do is they actually provide more with this suspension than just the regular function of a shock. So Josh and I are here to install these guys, and with the air spring, you have a tension on there. And so before installing these, we went ahead and let the air out of the bags. And if you're working on this on a car that's not inverted on the frame, you're going to want to make sure that you have a jack underneath the rear end for safety reasons. So beyond the regular function of a shock, which is the recoil of the suspension, the back and forth, with the air suspension, it acts as a stop.
That's right. When the shock is fully extended, it has a bump stop in it, and it's a model of shock specifically designed with that in mind, and that's to control the full extension of the suspension as the bags are inflated, and it prevents the too much travel of the axle, where the bag would become basically disconnected with the control arm due to too much movement. So it arrests the full extension movement of the suspension, while the bump stops, which we have yet to install, control it when it's in this position here, fully compressed.
So that's one thing unique, once again, with this Cadillac air suspension, that the shocks do provide a different service in the suspension than just necessarily we're in a regular vehicle.
That's right. There's certain vehicles that have an I-beam type front end, and the shock provides a similar service there too, in preventing the spring from basically popping out of position.
Very comparable. That's
Yes.
a good relationship if you're familiar with that style of front suspension. Oftentimes they use that. So we're going to go ahead and put these in there. Very straightforward, similar tube shock mounting. What you have is you have your different bushings. And so you have your smaller diameter ones, and those ones are going to go on the frame side of the vehicle. So what you do, of course, you've got to, you got to compress them in there. You've got your washers. And what's fortunate is the washers on this kit, which is available from Caddy Daddy, the washers are the same, but the bushings are different. So we want to make sure that we use the right upper versus lower bushings. Small diameter.
There's a small diameter, which is on the frame side, and that's the larger diameter that's on the axle side.
It's on the axle side
and
right
there's
here.
two of each, one for each side of the frame or axle member that it's being attached to.
So you slide that guy on there, so you're going to have your washer and you have your bushing. And you can start out right in here. All right, so now we have a safer situation. We've got the shocks in there, and so we can not worry about having too much air or too little air within these bellows.
That's right. We can't have any, the axle can't be overextended at this point when the bags are inflated. So I guess that'll be the next thing we do, Bob, is put some air in the bags and just with our test fittings that I made and see what it looks like moving up and down a little bit.
Let's see what that suspension feels
Sounds
like.
good.
Let's do it.
Vine Village is a great organization that gives back to the community. Check it out. You'll see so as well. Thanks for watching.
Hi, my name is Sanan Kirsten. We're here at the 2018 Vine Village Celebration, our major fundraiser here that helps fund programs that we run for people with developmental disabilities here in the greater Napa community. Vine Village was founded by my family and another family, each who had children with disabilities, in 1972. We depend on donations from all sorts of foundations and individuals and businesses throughout our community to help fund these programs, and this is our biggest fundraiser of the year.